Hey, today I want to show you how I run person-level research inside of Attio. I'm going to walk you through what this looks like. So let's run it first. Let's see what we get, and then I'll kind of explain the mechanics of how this actually works. So here I have a demo list of the CEOs of the tools that I'm using for this research workflow, and I'll kind of walk you through the tools later. But for the time being, I have Sam, Nicholas, Mark, and Matt. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to add them to the list called Automation Research People, which you'll see they've been added here, and now the workflow is running. So I can show you here that basically when a record gets added to the list, it just sends an HTTP request with the person's username, the client ID's WFCO, and then the Attio record, so that I can receive the information after it's been enriched, and then update the write record. It's running in TriggerDev, so let me show you what that looks like. Here we go. So you can see that these are all executing. And there's just a bunch of steps that we're currently running here in terms of what's actually happening. This is using an agentic framework called Mastra, which is the TypeScript native agentic framework. And you can see here that we're basically, when we receive the person, we're fetching their profile and their recent posts. We're combining that data, and then we're generating the person's research, and then we're updating the Attio record and some data manipulation that happens in between. So this is what's happening. And I'm just gonna let it run, and then you can even see this running right now. You can sort of see what's happening here. It's updating the Attio record, so it's gonna be done very soon. Let's actually go back to Attio and show you what this looks like. Cool. So you can now see that there is a person linked in research. This was empty before, and this is an attribute that I just pulled out. But you can see, for example, Nicholas Sharp is co-founder and CEO of Attio, which is the CRM that I'm using, right? A fast-growing AI native, blah, blah, blah. Recent posts focus on hypergrowth challenges, Malta offsite. I think this literally was from just like today. So let me see, where's post? Yeah, 10 hours ago, right? Talking about an offsite, 100 incredible people. So that's pretty cool. And if we go back, we can see the same thing for Matt, TriggerDev, which is the workflow orchestration tool that I'm using here. Mark, which is who's the CEO of Langfuse, which is the observability, but posts 1.4 times a day with strong engagement. Content is highly technical and product focused. And then it also tells me the low fit score for me specifically, or for the workflow company, because as you saw, we're passing in this client ID. And so what's happening is, I think this will actually help. We are loading the company context here. So let me just explain what actually happened. This is probably where it all makes sense. So we add the person to the Attio list, right? Then it sends that information, the payload that we sent with the correct authentication to Railway. And then if we don't have the right authentication, then obviously the service is denied. If yes, then we parse the LinkedIn username and URL, and then we send it over to trigger.dev, where we fetch their LinkedIn profile, fetch their last 10 LinkedIn posts, combine that data. And then here, what's interesting is because I passed in the client ID, WFCO here, that combines the person's data with my company's specific context. Now, why did I separate this out? Like, why did I not just hardcode this? Well, you can imagine if I have a bunch of clients, right? I can easily just pass in their IDs here, and then I could literally look at the same person who might be not a good fit for the workflow company, but maybe a really good fit for another client of mine, right? And so building sort of this composability into your workflows really helps you not have to hardcode and not have to sort of repeat yourself in building similar workflows. And so that's sort of what we did here. And then we pass that off to an LLM, and we analyze the person, their career trajectory, pain points, content themes, and then we generate a structured summary on the person. And then what we do is, I haven't shown you this yet, but we actually do a dual output to Attio. So one is this 5-sentence summary, which is really short and sweet, which I showed you here, right? So pretty short, like easy to digest. And then what we're also doing in the background is we're creating a note on this person that is a lot more thorough, right? So there's this person overview, career analysis, so classic founder trajectory, early technical roles, diverse operational experience, venture capital exposure, content analysis, pain points and challenges that are explicit, that are implied, what are their priorities and goals, and their relevance to the workflow company. Again, this can easily be swapped out for another client, right? Based on what context we feed it in here, right? So that's sort of what's going on. And then I think with LLMs, what's interesting, I think, or what's not interesting, but what's like really important is to be able to have observability and tracing in terms of what actually happened. Like what was the context that we fed it, right? Like what did we actually see here? And you can see that in Langfuse. So for example, you can see here, this is all the steps that, TriggerDev ran, but more sort of focused on the exchanges with AI, with LLM, right? And so you can sort of see, for example, it fetched posts of this person. So you can see like the post that they fetched, the profile that they fetched, and then you can sort of see what's going on in terms of the research agent. And I think what's actually interesting here, if I can show you this. Here we go. So, So you can see here, company context, right, for relevance assessment. This is, again, as a reminder, where that client ID, this basically pulled in this information from a database, right? So if I passed in a client of mine, then this would do the research for a client of mine, right? But basically here it says the workflow company, size is 10 to 50, and it looks at messaging, primary message. I think what's like, there's the narrative, right? A world where every B2B company can build world-class GTM systems with AI, regardless of team size or budget. Founded by GTM operators who saw AI's potential to transform outbound, but were frustrated by surface-level implementations. Product, and then target personas. So we can VP of sales or head of growth, or so it pulls in all of this context about the workflow company, and then assesses fit and pulls out contextually relevant bits of information from this person, right? And that is, I think, the direction that every sort of CRM enrichment should go if you're not doing that already. And what's important is that this context about your business, your company, should probably live in a programmatically accessible source, right? That someone as an admin has access to and has read and write access to, but anyone else can have read access to. So like, for example, as your company grows, as you hit series A, B, C, D, or whatever, and your personas maybe multiply in number, or your product suite expands, right? Then you can start adding more of those into this sort of context around your company. There's Octave, which is basically the productized version of this, right? What I like about doing this in code for myself is that I have very granular control over every aspect of this, right? That I can turn all the knobs and dials, and for myself and for my clients as well, which means I have maximum control over how this performs, and I have all of the traces, all of the logs to iterate on this, right? And so, so I got sidetracked there, but I think it's really important that you always pull this like context about yourself, about your company. You store it in a central place that everyone has access to, at least read access to, and then you pull it into your prompt, versus trying to create a prompt that hard codes this context, because you know that the context is always shifting, right? And so if you create like an enrichment prompt that hard codes text about the context of your business into it, it becomes really difficult to keep that updated. But if it's in a central place that your enrichment just points to, right, and pulls whatever the latest updated version is, right, it's a lot easier to actually not worry about having to update all of your downstream enrichment modules. You just have to update the source context, and then all of your enrichment modules can just refer back to it, and then enrich accounts and contexts that are in a hyper relevant way that fit the context of your company. Okay, I think I literally talked about that like 5 times, but I just think it's like so simple, yet it's so important, and so I just want to really highlight that. But basically, that's what it looks like. I mean, there's a lot of one other thing that I want to mention is that you might think, okay, this is a bit of an overkill. You're literally using Attio, Railway, TriggerDev, Mastra, PostgreSQL, Claude, Attio, Langfuse. Like these are pretty technical, like developer-friendly tools that you're building the stack on. Like you could probably just do this on N8N or maybe even Clay, right? But the difference, I think there's 2 main reasons why I'm opting for the stack, right? One is this is a lot more robust. All the traces, all the logs, all the observability that I need to like iterate on this, I get that, right? Whereas with N8N, it's a little bit, it's possible, but it's maybe a little bit more challenging. And this sort of like composable architecture is actually quite difficult to navigate about and to reason about in N8N, because you have to build like sub workflows and it's visual, so you have to like do a lot of clicking around. In Clay, the observability is like impossible because everything, because it's a sheet, spreadsheet interface, like everything gets overwritten. When errors happen, you just don't hear about it, you don't know, right? The second part is, yes, like I could probably do this in N8N, and this is probably over engineering, but now that I've built all of these modules, right, now it's so easy for me to just be like, okay, so we do the research on the person and we inject the context of our company, right? Right now we're doing the research, but like it's so easy to create another module here to say, let's do an outbound message for this person, right? And then let's break that down further and say, let's do a cold call talk track. Let's do a sequence of cold emails. Let's do a sequence of LinkedIn messages, for example, right? Like let's create that. And so it becomes way easier to expand and build on top of this foundation when you build this sort of like composable architecture, right? Another thing, like another example is like right now we're doing research only on the person based on their LinkedIn activity. But what if we started what if we started doing research on their company, for example, right? Like let's build another module here and then feed that into, combine that with the context and then do the analysis, for example, right? So I think that's why sometimes this like upfront investment in building out the right scalable foundation and architecture is like starts compounding. You know, it kind of, I look at it as sort of an exponential graph where at first it's like very slow going and it might take actually longer than setting up a quick prototype in Clay or in Aiden. But as you start building on top of it, right, it starts actually paying off the sort of the upfront investment in the architecture. And that's sort of how we like to approach a lot of our projects is like, it feels a little bit slow, but we're doing the groundwork of like making something that's a lot more scalable. So anyways, hopefully this was helpful. Definitely let me know if you have any questions in the comments and I'd love to hear what you think about this. Thanks.